to have you all here. This is just so cool that this is happening. And hello.
All right.
Oh,
Can you hear us?
Hi. Well, I'm a very tiny image in the corner.
Oh, I'm sorry. Say that one more time.
I'm a very tiny image in the corner.
Well, we can see you great online.
Very small. Let me see if I can make this bigger. Whatever. I don't need to see myself. I know what I look like. What's up, guys?
Well, we are.
Did you hack Tesla or SpaceX yet? Come on.
I think we had some attempts.
Okay.
We can see you loud and clear, and we're just so glad to have you here. So thank you, Elon. We're glad you're here. My name is Zach Lotta. I'm founder of Hack Club. I founded Hack Club after I dropped out of 9th grade to move to San Francisco and to be a programmer. My public school had no computer science classes, and still most US public schools don't teach any technology. Hack Club is a nonprofit that relies on donations. I know it's crazy. 60% of high schools don't teach computer science. Hack Club is a nonprofit that relies on donations, and it's open and free to any high school student who wants to learn to build and innovate with code. So we're live right now.
Legally?
Yeah, we keep it legal. We keep it legal. So
what?
Live right now.
Come on, guys.
And this interview. Yeah, so we'll get started in 1 second. So this interview with you, like everything at Hack Club, was ideated. A teenager reached out to you. We have a small army of teenagers managing the OBS stream to YouTube right now. And we even have a teenager facilitating this call. So Elon, if Hack Club is successful, in 50 years from now, we're gonna have people running the world who actually build things. So thank you for being here. I'm gonna pass it off to Amog, who's the host. Amog, please take us away.
All right, folks, it's showtime. My name is Amog, and I'm a 17-year-old from Connecticut. And I've been with Hack Club for 2 years. And 2 years ago, I walked into my first meeting and came out with a website and a burning desire to create more. And Hack Club has connected me to my closest friends and organized events that I've never thought were possible. But most importantly, Hack Club has taught me that if there's a problem out there, we need to build to fix it. And that's why you, Elon, are a perfect guest today, because you've taken Hack Club's ideals and ran with them. You've talked about how electric cars were dodgy and uninteresting. And as chief engineer, you've created Tesla to be the premier electric car company. For decades, people have said spaceflight is just expensive, affordable spaceflight is impossible, but you built SpaceX from the ground up, defying what everybody said for decades and putting affordable spaceflight on our horizons. And just like all of us, you were once a bold, young student, and you had the drive to do them. When you were 12, you sold your first video game for $500, and that's been echoed throughout Hack Club everywhere. We have so many students doing that. That's why you're an inspiration for so many of our students. You've taken our ideals and ran with them. So with that being said, we're going to go to our first question of the day. Theo, who helped organize all of this. Theo, go ahead.
Cool. All right. Hi, Elon. I'm Theo. I'm a 16-year-old student in Boston, and I run a Hack Club here. So my question is about cryonics. So cryonics are kind of controversial. Some people think they're legit. Some people think it's like totally unfeasible and pseudoscience. My question is, do you think that?
Were you brain when you're dead or something?
Yeah. Like basically, like using like Okay. So I have two questions. So do you think that cryonics are legit? And do you think that the tech to revive people who have been preserved using cryonics will exist in, like, let's say 100 years? If you had to take your best guess.
Well, actually, I think assuming that the brain is frozen quickly after death, then I think you probably could extract quite a lot of information from it in the future, and you might be able to create something approximating that person. I mean, there's going to be a few issues, obviously, but the brain is very physical. It's much less mysterious than people think. Well, it's both simultaneously amazing and less mysterious. I mean, the neurons are like circuits, they're like physical circuits. So yeah, so if you have a physical brain, you should be able to recreate those physical circuits. Yeah, with some issues, of course, since there's going to be some damage. And they do this right now with rats. I mean, if you look up, like, when they do rat experiments, which are they're kind of gruesome, but I guess maybe they got some payback due from the Black Plague and stuff. But that's like karmic payback. I don't know. But they like do rat experiments where they'll train the rat on a maze, and then they'll freeze the rat brain, and then they'll like dissect it, and you can like see the maze kind of thing in the brain. Like It's pretty nuts. So probably can do that with humans too.
Yeah. Cool. Okay. Thank you so much.
Yeah. Great question. So Elon, so like all of us, you were once like a student hacker and you had all these same interesting ideas. Could you share with us a quick story like about your first hack or something along those lines?
Yeah, you guys seem really wholesome, by the way. I mean, probably I can't tell, all the things that I did because that'd probably get me in trouble. But I think some of them I'd be locked up for, I don't know. But I did all the basic things, like hack the school computer, like you start off with the basic stuff, like do a dictionary hack, look for the default username, password that came with the thing. Okay, what's this? Who's the sysadmin? But they probably tape their password under the desk, that kind of stuff. By the way, that can get you very far. What's the Wi-Fi password? Check the router. It's probably just saved there. And then there's like, 0-day exploits where there's like a, some code error in a driver or in a common library. Those a bunch of those. There was like, sort of, I guess we did have a little computer club when I was, in South Africa. And there was like, when compiling code, you could compile it to be encrypted. And then I had like a bet with a friend of mine, said like, there's no way you can tell me what my code is because I'm going to compile it encrypted, run it, and then and then delete it. It's like, okay, well, what actually happens is that when you go delete, unless you scrub the entire RAM of the system, it's still there. So just like in general, you just like fill in the first few bytes and bingo, you got the whole, here's your code. You just basically poke around in the memory, fill in the gaps. The same for files, of course. Yeah. So, people don't think, oh, I deleted my file. No, actually the computer just like, deleted the first few bytes of the directory of basically the disk allocation of that file, and you can totally just do just read all the bytes on the disk, and pretty much you're gonna get most of what was allegedly deleted. So unless you do a hard delete, it's still there, obviously. So amazingly, a lot of knuckleheads still don't realize that.
I think we should move on to this question. Sorry, but that's
okay.
So I myself didn't know about hard delete till 2 years ago. So So our next question will come from Sam Yuka. And reminder for everybody asking a question: introduce yourself, your grade, and where your hack club is located. Anyway, Sam Yuka, you have the floor.
Hi everyone, and hi Mr. Musk. My name is Sam Yuka. I'm a 16-year-old, and my hack club is located in Atlanta, Georgia. So my question is, what role do you think organizations like Hack Club or generally just high schoolers play in tech, especially? A lot of times, for us, it seems to be really concentrated. For me, I don't live on the West Coast. I live in Georgia. So I'm kind of separated a lot of times from all the action, all the hackathons and whatever. So what role do you think that more remote or just generally building this kind of movement has on the future of technology?
Well, I mean, I'd recommend, trying to write software that you or your friends find interesting. It's either fun or useful. So, writing video games. I mean, I love playing video games. So I was like, well, I'll write one too, play my own video game type of thing. So it wasn't from some sort of career development standpoint. I was like, whoa, computers can do this. That's incredible. And so let me see if I can write a game too, because I was really admiring all these people that could write these awesome video games. And it's like, wow, that would be super great if I could write one too. I wrote a few simple games. And then the one you referred to, Blastar, I mean, let's just say I'm at least consistent, because the video game I wrote, that particular one was a space video game. So, like defending against aliens with your spaceship. It was Blastar is what it meant to be. So, so I think just like trying to make, do things that are interesting or useful or fun with your friends. I mean, and basically like have a good time, you know, and like say what draws you in, like what doesn't feel like work, and do that, you know. You know, but like programming is kind of like a sort of kind of most of the time kind of a weird sort of lonely pursuit, or not lonely, but it's like it's usually not that collaborative. Meaning like you're like up late at night typing weird symbols into a computer, or you know, into a phone, usually by yourself, or at least there might be someone else nearby, but you're not like talking to them a lot. So it's like it's kind of a weird thing, you know. So it's like, you know, does that appeal to you or not? Sometimes it does, sometimes it doesn't. But yeah, just like I think the hardest thing is to do something useful or interesting for others, and that's worth doing. And like hack usually means like, you know, breaking into stuff, which is kind of, you know, within reasonable bounds. I think, you know, kind of fun. You want to be a little bit of a pirate, you know. You don't want to listen to all the rules, please. Especially your kids. I mean, don't listen to the rules, please. You know, like you can get. I think kids can get away with a lot more. I would say break the rules. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
I agree with like Hack Club like was really valuable, exposing you to cool things and finding what like appeals to you. At my first Hack Club meeting, I found literally every single weird CSS thing I could do and just slapped it on a website. It was terrible, but it was a lot of fun. But yeah, our next question is going to come from Jacob. Take it away.
So hi, Elon. My name is Jacob Happ. I am from Cincinnati, Ohio. And I was wondering, so if the world is a simulation, would you say there is a way that we can manipulate the simulation or sort of find a way to cheat to make everything better for ourselves?
Yeah, that's a great question. Well, first of all, like, you know, when I talk about the simulation hypothesis, you know, this is from like a philosophical standpoint. It's not from the standpoint of like, well, you know, we shouldn't care about things, or because if you're in the simulation, it's as real as reality. It is reality. And then, but to your point, like whether it's a simulation or not, it's like we should really strive to make it like interesting and exciting, and have the future be you know, something people look forward to. You know, especially times like this, it gets like, man, we really need reasons for optimism in the future. And this, what do we? I think we want to, you know, expand the scope and scale of consciousness and go out there and be a space-faring civilization, and go and, you know, find out if there's like other civilizations. Maybe they're out there somewhere. Maybe they existed millions of years ago. I mean, there might be, you know, all these like one planet civilizations that, you know, had their heyday, and then, you know, they might be out there, you know, on these like just really interesting ruins on planets far away type of thing, you know. And so anyway, like we want to like say like, okay, how do we build a positive future that people are excited about? You know, too often like people are just like trying to, you know, tear each other down and like attack, be negative. There's like too much negativity. Like, let's like say, okay, sure, there's negativity, but like, hey, let's like build towards some positive future and be pro-human. Mm-hmm. I mean, I don't know if that makes any sense, but, you know, does it make sense, or are you looking for specific? Yeah. Just looking for specific recommendations. You know, just it's like let's build towards a better and brighter future. That's yeah. I try to understand more about the universe and why we're here and what brought us here. You know, try to understand, like Douglas Adams said, like what are the questions we should ask? Because like the universe is the answer. What are the questions?
Yeah, absolutely. I remember like one of the first things we did in our hack club meetings is that I learned about Roko's basilisk that theory, and instead of doing a workshop that day, we literally just spent like the whole hour just going down that rabbit hole. But yeah, our next
yeah. I mean that can definitely cause some concern if you go down that rabbit hole.
Yeah. Our next question will come from.
Some people are kind of like just bringing up Roko's basilisk, you know.
Yeah. Exactly.
And like, where is Roko anyway? Why does he have a basilisk?
Our next question will come from the founder of Los Altos Hacks, Selena Son.
Hi, Elon. My name is Selena, and I'm a college senior at Cal Poly SLO. But 6 years ago, I was part of the founding team at the Hack Club at Los Altos High in California. So Elon, you have a ton of power and influence in the world. How does this drive your decisions to advocate for something publicly? How much of it is doing good for the sake of doing good?
Well, I mean, mostly what I'm trying to do is like, build things that are useful and make the future better. And like I said, I'm like, although it's sometimes difficult at times, I'm quite really pro-human, and I think there's a lot to love about humanity. And so, like, okay, we need to do some things that are really important, like transition to sustainable energy transport and sustainable energy production. These are, it's like tautological. It's we must, if we don't transition to it, we will run out of, even without environmental concerns, we would run out of energy, and then civilization would collapse. So, in fact, I should note that my interest in electric vehicles and solar predates the environmental concerns, because I just was like, okay, if we do not have sustainable energy and electric cars, then civilization will collapse independent of any environmental concerns. So this, and I'm not actually, I'm not somebody who would say like, oh, we must immediately stop the oil and gas industry, because this would cause civilization to collapse also. But we do need to transition over time to a sustainable energy system, and we want to probably have that occur faster rather than slower. And that's like why we need electric cars and solar and batteries and that kind of thing. And then we want to be on a path to become a multi-planet species and a spacefaring civilization, and go out there and try to understand the nature of the universe and what's going on. And it's just basically, I think, for both for preservation of civilization, as well as the adventure of it, and just the excitement of the future. And if you think about, like, when they went to the moon, it was now a long time ago, almost half a century. Even though a small number of people went, we actually all went with them vicariously, and we all experienced that, and it was a great moment for humanity. So, like, we should have more of that stuff. That's the kind of thing that makes life worth living. So, and then there are also, all these like social issues, but I'm trying to focus my energy on like, what is the thing that is definitely good? And then, people will argue about this, that, or the other thing, but we definitely need sustainable energy. And I think we definitely want to go out there and explore the universe.
Absolutely. That was a really interesting perspective and great question, Selena. Next up, we have Saharsh. Take it away.
Hi, so my name's Saharsh. I'm a high schooler. I'm a 16-year-old in a high school near Boston. And I had a question about mainstream media. So you've expressed your displeasure with mainstream media. I was just wondering, what do you see as a replacement for mainstream media, or rather an alternative to it? Like, if like the current large entities fall, who do you see taking their place? Won't it just be the same same concept but just different people?
No, I think this is what we're doing right now is a good example of what I think the future of media should be, which is like basically citizen journalism, citizen media, like you basically. It's like, there's the thing to appreciate about like the so-called mainstream media is that there's a feedback mechanism around advertising and clicks, which is not healthy. It's you kind of like it's hard to sort of blame the individuals in the system. It's like the system is messed up, you know? And so if you're a journalist and you don't write the inflammatory article that gets tons of clicks, then you might lose your job. The same goes for the editor and whatnot. And so this is just a tough situation. Like it's kind of a no-win situation, to be totally frank. Like I'm like, you know, very much sort of like anti-advertising. Like Tesla's never advertised. Even in 2008, when we were almost dying, I was like, I could not bring myself to advertise. I'd just rather put the money into making the car better and let word of mouth, you know, just sell a car through word of mouth, basically. So I just think there's something broken with the moral structure of advertising, to be totally frank. It's messed up. So, you know, that's I think the root of the problem. And then the answer, I think, is citizen journalism that we're doing right now. Because you ask way better questions, frankly, than the mainstream media. It's the truth.
Yeah.
You know?
Absolutely. I think we've all seen like the rise of clickbait, especially on YouTube, like all those YouTubers who are just trying to get a bunch of views. And you're right. It is a really interesting idea to talk about how it's the system overall that's like pushing everybody to do this. Next up, we're going to hear a question from Cedric. Cedric, are you there?
Yep. Hi. So Elon, I think it's funny that you said that you didn't like advertising, because in my eyes, a lot of your success is in your personal your public representation. Like everyone knows who you are, and if they're not entertained, if they're not endeared by your shenanigans, I mean, they're at least entertained by them. And meanwhile, Hack Club is about.
There should be more shenanigans. I mean, those things. I mean, not the shenanigans. You can't bat 1,000 on the shenanigans, but in general, they're pretty fun.
Yeah, I mean, everyone likes them. And the maker movement, it is about shenanigans, but it has a much different public representation, right? People don't think that they can make things. And you do a lot to make, like, through your efforts in STEM education, you do a lot to make it more accessible. But people still can't think that they can't do it. So how do we, like, what advice would you give to us, like members of the maker movement, to improve the public representation of making things?
Ooh, did we lose it?
Oh no, you're still here.
Yeah, so I think we had a slight glitch there for a while. Anyway, I thought like you've got a super great point. Like a lot of people, the thing that stops them from making things or doing things is actually they're self-limiting, and they realize that they're actually capable of much more. Like like, you know, it's like you got to try. You just believe in yourself and try, and people can do way more than they think. So, and yeah, I'm actually kind of more, in fact, more worried about like the sort of physical making of things, because I think we're getting kind of disconnected from physicality and from the world of atoms. And like a lot of people say, like, where does the ketchup come from? It doesn't come from the store, you know, it comes from the ketchup factory, and it's quite hard, and you have to figure out how to do manufacturing and supply chain and all that sort of stuff. In fact, I think manufacturing is really underrated. It's pretty great, and there's a lot of potential for innovation, and it's just a good thing to do. So you know, I think we should put more weight on manufacturing and production and making of physical things, and like often people think manufacturing is just like making copies of something, and it's actually no, it's making the machine that makes the machine, and it's really interesting, and there's a tremendous amount of innovation and creativity as possible in that. You know, I'm out here in Boca Chica, Texas, with this Scholarship Production Complex, and by far the hard thing is making the production system. So we've obviously, we've blown up a bunch of prototypes, and we've got serial number 4 now. We're going to hopefully, pressure test that tomorrow. But the thing that's really hard is the production system. And it's like really hard. People are really working, really talented team here, working very hard. and then that's what's the actual hard thing is. So it's like, I'd say like designing it is a rocket is like 1x hard, then building one of it is 10x, and building the production system is at least 100x, possibly 1,000x.
Yeah.
Just to give you some order of magnitude of difficulty. But I love the maker movement, and it's just like, it's very satisfying. Whether you're making something big or small, like whether making cars or cookies. Honestly, those great stuff. I love cookies actually.
Yeah, absolutely. Like the Hack Club ship channel like follows that same idea. Where it's like literally ship anything. If you make something,
totally.
show it off.
That's great.
Yeah,
for sure.
Yeah.
Yep.
Our next question will come from Lachlan.
Hey, I'm Lachlan Campbell. I'm an 18-year-old former Hack Club leader from State College, Pennsylvania. So there's a widespread belief that solving climate change and capitalism are incompatible. We founded both SpaceX and Tesla as for-profit companies. Do you think we need to change capitalism, or how do you see the role of for-profit corporations trying to solve climate change?
Another great question, man. You guys have like better questions than all mainstream media combined. It's crazy. You guys can laugh. Awesome. So I think this is actually a really important discussion and debate that we should have, because I actually think capitalism is a good system provided that the rules are set correctly. And so the issue that we have right now is basically an unpriced externality in the CO2 capacity of the oceans and atmosphere. And so when you have an unpriced externality, then that's when capitalism, which is simply responding to market forces, and market forces are simply, what do people want? Like at its basic definition, capitalism is just doing what people want. Literally, but if the rules are, if there's an unpriced externality, which is not that often, it's not that often, but in the case of CO2 capacity of oceans and atmosphere, there's an unpriced externality with a certain risk associated with it. As that magnitude gets more, the risk gets higher. So the obvious solution here is a carbon tax. Now, over time, I am confident we will have this. And if we just put the carbon tax in place, everything will be fine. I think greatly, even like companies like Exxon are saying, do a carbon tax. So it's the thing that should be done. And then that will right the system. But I mean, there's a lot that I have to say on this front, which if I may sort of wax on for a bit, it'll probably get me into trouble, but whatever. You have to say, like, you want to say, what is the system that will result in the most amount of good for the most amount of people? Like, what maximizes the area under the curve of population happiness? That's really what I think we should be trying to achieve. And I think that almost by definition is capitalism. But we've got to fix capitalism in certain areas, like I said, with the rules around CO2 capacity of oceans and atmosphere. But mostly it works quite well. And it's hard to think of what a good alternative would be. Like often people say, well, the government should do it. But really, what is the government but a corporation in the limit? If you say, like, if you scale up a corporation and the government is just the biggest corporation and it has a monopoly. So is the government going to do the right thing when it is a monopolistic corporation? Unlikely. The government is essentially not the solution. It is, and mostly because a monopolistic the bigger a corporation gets and the more monopolistic a corporation gets, the weaker the feedback loop is for serving the customers or the population. So if you have a weak feedback loop, then the responsiveness is not going to be good. The product will not be good. Yeah. So, like, if you don't like what the government's doing, and how can you really complain? And what's your alternative? But if you have competition, then that keeps people on. That keeps entities honest. Like if two entities are competing to make you happy, then that's good. But if they don't have to compete to make you happy, that's bad.
Absolutely. Elon, we could talk about this for hours, and these are also discussed a lot on the Slack, but unfortunately, we have a lot of questions, and we can take 2 more. So we're going to take one quick question from a student, Claire.
Hello, so my name is Claire. I'm a student at Hawthorne. And so I have a question regarding Neuralink and going to space. So you have launched rockets to Mars, and I was wondering what you thought the role of like neuroscience and BCIs
are. I'm not launched rockets to Mars yet. Aspirationally, that was the goal. That is the goal, but we have not yet. In fact, it's a bit embarrassing. We have not yet launched a rocket to Mars, but we will.
Yeah, I know. I mean, what is the role of, yeah.
There's a car. There's a car.
True. And there's a person floating around.
Yes. There is technically a satellite in orbit around Earth and Mars. So yes, didn't get to Mars itself, but it's Mars adjacent.
So I was wondering what you thought like the role of neuroscience or BCIs would be in space travel, or you think they're like unrelated entities?
I think that the brain-computer interface is extremely important for essentially achieving symbiosis with AI, because we're input-output limited. We're effectively a cyborg right now, where your phone or computer is an extension of yourself, but your input is bounded by the screen, and your output is bounded by your thumbs or fingers. So effectively, over time, we would drift away from a machine intelligence. Have a high bandwidth neural interface, then we can solve the I/O problem and go along for the ride symbiotically. Just as our cortex and our limbic system are quite happy together, and I've not met anyone who wants to delete their cortex or their limbic system, even though the cortex is in principle much smarter than the limbic system. And mostly the cortex is trying to make the limbic system happy. So we could have a tertiary layer, and in fact, like I said, we have a tertiary layer in silicon, but the communication bandwidth to that silicon tertiary layer is very constrained. It's like at this point trying to drain a pool using a straw. It's a very thin pipe. Yes, and so I think that's quite important. And of course, along the way with the brain-computer interface, we would also solve a lot of brain injuries, as well as like as you get old, you sort of lose your memory. Well, we could restore your memory, and you could really play a big role in senility and in have a stroke, or if there's something congenital, that all could be fixed with a brain-computer interface by creating a neural shunt. You could also like restore functionality of limbs by having like sort of a neural and then having essentially a microcontroller in the muscle regions, and so you could restore full limb movement even with a separate. Yeah.
This is sorry, I don't mean to cut you off. This is really fascinating, and unfortunately, we do have to move on because you're on a tight limit. So our final question today is going to come from our panel.
If you want, these questions are great. They're waiting for me over at the barrel welding tent, but I can spend a bit more time if you'd like.
Okay, well, in that case, we have a fun question from Jamshed.
Hi, Elon. I'm Jamshed. I'm 19, and I ran a hack club in the Bay Area. So we all know Don't Doubt Your Vibe is super fire. And the question we all need to know is, do you have plans for another song? And if so, when is it dropping?
I don't know how the hell that song even came up. I just woke up one morning and it was like, it was like when these lyrics popped into my head, and then my girlfriend like recorded them and said, "Hey, these are good. Let's do a song. Make it a song." That's how it happened. It was super random. I don't know. I guess if I get sort of inspired, I always thought, geez, it's incredibly absurd for me to make a song. I mean, I don't know anything about music, but you know, I guess if I get sort of inspired about something, maybe I'll make another song and put it out there. Yeah.
On behalf of all of us, we're really just looking forward to the entire album, you know.
Well, and I hopefully don't have to make an album. That would be a lot. Yeah, I can't believe that I did make a song. This is crazy. I mean, yes. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Our next question is going to come from Ben Albin.
Hi, I'm really curious just to hear about something recent you've done, like just solving a problem. I don't like not necessarily anything large, but just interesting thing that you've done recently and how you did that.
Ben, real quick, can you introduce yourself? Say
your yeah. I'm Ben Albin. I'm a hack club leader in the DFW area, and I do a lot of programming and stuff.
All right, cool. Let's see. Probably like the biggest issue I have is like context switching, because I got like so many things going on here at SpaceX and Tesla and Neuralink, Boring Company, your personal stuff. The thing that I find is like quite taxing my brain is the context switching. But that is what I'm probably having the most trouble with. But because there's so many problems that occur during the day, and I'm actually really deep feeds on so many things. It's pretty ridiculous. So let's see, like last night, and this was, I don't know, 2 or 3 a.m. or something. I was in the tent 2 of the Starship production complex at the barrel welding station, and we were, for the circumferential welds of the ship, we're seeing a little bit of pucker where the weld's puckering in a little bit. You can see it on the, it's pretty obvious online. I mean, it used to look like the Michelin Man, so it's way better than it was, but we're still getting a little bit of pucker, and the welds are going a bit slow. So I was out there just talking with the welding team, and I think it was like the issue was like really we're rotating the barrel only at a 1/4 meter per minute, but the barrel rotation tool is capable of 1.5 meters per minute, and the welding torch was not set at maximum power, and so the result was that we were heating the steel too much, and it was softening, and then just slightly collapsing under its own weight, because it was softening. So when you do a weld, you really want to have a high energy density weld to be just right there. You want a tight gap, high energy weld, and you don't want to heat up the parent material because it, like I said, it's going to soften a little bit and kind of pucker, and that's bad for buckling. You don't want to have a buckling initiation point, and then and then yes, so that's what I was working on last night as an example. Then it was like, okay, guys, experiments, because they were worried about like changing the parameters and then maybe having to scrap barrels, and these are barrels that are 9 meters in diameter, or 30 feet in diameter basically, and you're 2 of them, and so they're like, well, we don't want to scrap the barrel, we're worried about changing the settings, but it's like, okay, but let's just have some fun here and try some experiments, because otherwise nothing ventured, nothing gained. So they were like super excited about that, and in fact, right after this call, I'm headed out there to see the results. And I think we kind of messed up half the weld, but I think the other half is good. And so, and then we'll end up with a faster weld that is less heat input into the material, which causes less dimensional variation, because you've got 300 series stainless has a pretty high coefficient of thermal expansion. So, when you warm it up, then the gap changes, like, because it's metal expanding. So we want like tight gap, a hot weld, move fast, and then we have a good joint.
Yeah,
So that's like what it was like last night at 2 or 3 a.m.
It's actually really interesting that you're going to see the results after this call. So this is like currently on your mind. Yeah,
I was listening right before I went to bed. And so it's like stuff like that times 1,000.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Our next question will come from our founder, Zach.
Hey, Elon. So first, quick fire question. Second, real question. First question is 3 parts. 1, tabs or spaces. 2, Vim or Emacs. 3, light or dark mode.
What was the first one? Sorry, I didn't catch it.
Yes, sorry. Tabs or spaces. Vim or Emacs. And then
wow. Okay. Man, there's been a lot of battles over all these things. I suppose, okay, tabs. I generally use like a basic text editor, not Vim or Emacs. Just and I did quite a lot of programming for game environments, so it was like I kind of got used to the Microsoft Developer Studio, which has its issues. So, but it's worth bearing in mind, like most games are actually made that using that. So I use that quite a lot. I do think that compilers, there should be a lot. We should put more work into compilers. Like the compilers should really be catching a lot of these elementary errors, like memory leaks and defining a variable wrong. It's just a bit more work into compilers would massively improve bug tracing.
Great.
And sorry, what was the third one?
Yeah. So there's 2 questions. So by the way, you should check out Rust. And also, I'm sorry to hear that you have the wrong answer about tabs or spaces, because spaces is the only correct answer.
I mean, I've done both.
Yeah. So
it's like which one's more keystrokes? Like if the tabs needs less keystrokes. So if you're trying to code fast, then you use tabs.
No. All right. So the next, so my real question is, say when you got on this call, you didn't actually get on a Google Meet or a Zoom, and suddenly you found yourself teleported back to the year 500 BC. You don't know how you got there.
Where am I?
But somehow you realize that you've also become dictator of the world. So
oh man.
You realize that you are on one of 3 identical Earths in the year 500 BC, and you also realize that in 2020, in 2,520 years from now, there is going to be a great war between these 3 Earths, and only one Earth is going to survive. The question is, what do you do as dictator of the world in 500 BC to best increase your Earth's chance of survival? There's 3 quick constraints. 1, you die. You only have the rest of your life to set your plans in motion. So you have to hope that whatever you start during your lifetime happens during the rest of the 2,520 years. Second, you can start anywhere you want and assume you speak the local language, but it is 500 BC and you're limited accordingly.
Is this your video game?
Maybe it could be. But third, the war is inevitable. There's no way you can prevent it. You can picture 3 Earths going into a black box and only one survives.
Well, I mean, I must be pretty advanced if I'm in the year 500 and know all these things. So I probably must know some advanced technology, or how the heck would I know about the future of this and all these like 3 Earths thing?
Sorry. You know everything you know today, but you can't prepare.
I can teleport back in time.
Sorry?
So I was like basically transported back in time.
Yeah.
I mean, well, I think you'd want to set in motion the Enlightenment as much as possible and propagate the scientific method and try to, basically teach people physics and what reality is actually about, but physics and information theory, because we better build up technology fast, or the alien invasion fleet's going to take us out. So I guess try to set the Enlightenment in motion, which probably would result in not being dictator for very long, because the generally people don't like dictators in that situation. But I think we'd obviously want to just try to advance technology at the fastest pace possible. Yeah, and
yeah, that's
obviously, I mean, that seems like the logical thing to do. What would you do?
I would do 3 things, maybe 4 things. First, I would build roads. I think infrastructure is very important and underinvested in. Second, I'd bring everything I know today. I don't know a lot of physics, but I bet I could at least bring back the fundamentals of electricity and push material science further ahead pretty far. Third, I would try to get, I think if there's one thing that's worked consistently very well throughout history to get really great innovations happening is getting really smart people together and giving them pretty close to unlimited resources. I think you see this in Athens. I think you see this with the Medici family. I think you see this with Bell Labs. I think you see this with Xerox PARC. I would do that. And finally, I would start in Athens and I'd prevent the Peloponnesian War because I think that set humanity back really far back.
Yeah, but we really wasted a lot of lives on that one.
Yeah.
I mean, generally, like a lot of these civilizations seem to have done a tremendous amount of infighting and have been their own worst enemy.
Yeah.
Like Rome was for sure its own worst enemy so many times. And Macedonia after Alexander was like, man, they just basically just killed each other. It was insane. So I think the lesson there is like, hey, let's minimize the infighting and work together towards a common goal of like being a space-faring civilization and greater enlightenment and ensuring that the environment is good. And just like I think probably we maybe have a little bit more fun. Like I think sometimes people forget like, hey, we should have some fun and be lighthearted and not get too serious. Because you gotta have some fun along the way. Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah. I remember when Matthew first asked me this question a while back, I didn't really think too deeply. I was just like, oh, I'll just write down everything I know. Boom, I'm done.
Yeah.
Next up, our next question will come from Melody.
Oh, hey, Elon. My name is Melody. I'm from West Philadelphia, and I started one of the very first hack clubs in America. So one of my question for you is, what was going through your mind when you smashed that window in the Cybertech unveiling, and how did you gain the confidence to like keep going?
Well, I mean, the funny thing is like I'd actually thrown, both I and Franz had thrown the iron ball or steel ball at the window before the event. So it was like quite shocking that it didn't work at the time. And I think what happened is like when Franz sledgehammered the door, I think probably we cracked the bottom corner, and that's what led to the steel ball cracking the window instead of the instead of bouncing off like it did when we were practicing. Yeah, that was quite startling. And then the irony was that I was like, well, if the first window doesn't work, don't worry, the second one that'll definitely work. What they meant was on the other side of the vehicle, not the second window along, but on the other side. So anyway, that was a bit startling. I think it ended up getting a lot of attention, so I guess it wasn't that bad. And we can always repeat it again. But it was quite shocking. It sort of definitely stopped me in my tracks there. I was like, whoa, now what? But I think the thing that maybe saved the day at the end was driving the electric ATV up on the truck bed. You know, it was like, and yeah, for a while it was like, hopefully this thing works. This could really end poorly, but then it you know, able to get the electric ATV on the truck bed, and I think it ended on a good note. But yeah, I was kind of stunned, and I kind of forgot what I was supposed to do. That's what actually happened there. Yeah.
No, it's
going to be a great car, though. I think it's going to be, I think, maybe our most fun car, the Cybertruck.
Yeah, I know there was like a big watching party from Hack Club when you unveiled it, and it also became a bit of a meme in the community. But
Sure.
Our next question is going to come from Eliza. Eliza, you there?
I believe Eliza does not have a microphone, if I remember correctly.
Okay. In that case, we'll hear a question from Jack.
Could be wrong.
Hello, everyone. I'm Jack, and I'm currently a 15-year-old from Cupertino High School. And my question is, how would you know when technology has advanced too far, and what are some of your solutions if the AI takes over the world?
Well, I think our resilience to social media is quite weak. I think that is clear. I sympathize with the anti-globalization protesters in that our sort of mind virus immunity is weak. This can easily be exploited by people with bad intentions, or even just an AI doing a gradient descent algorithm with some goal that could be totally random, like just maximize advertising clicks. So it's like if you're an AI, it's like you're in fact, Facebook actually literally has AIs with this goal. So if the goal is maximize advertising revenue, it could create all sorts of crisis issues, and it could start a war or something. Like it's like whatever drives the clicks, it will do. So I think we should be on the lookout for, and just really, in fact, that was my top recommendation for AI is like, we should be monitoring the social media stuff to see if using AI to manipulate the public mind space. Because and I think there's some things that you could see if it was an AI, because it would be moving very quickly. Like it would be responding much faster than a sort of a network of trolls or bots, or manual bots. It would just respond very quickly. So you could maybe like use an AI to detect whether an AI is being used. I think this is an important thing to do. So.
Yeah, absolutely. I know you've done a lot of your work and like talked a lot about like the future of AI and like what that actually means, like in all the different market spheres. And Eliza's mic is working, so she's gonna wrap us up today, and then we'll go to Zach for.
Yeah. I would just in general just emphasize this very strongly. Beware of AI manipulation. It's not necessarily an AI going rogue by itself, but it could be just somebody operating an AI.
Yeah.
Like people just don't understand just how good that can be. And if just like watch AlphaGo playing Lisa Doll.
Yeah.
Now imagine that social media.
That was crazy.
And you're Lisa
Doll. Eliza, are you ready?
Yeah.
Yep, go ahead.
Hi, my name's Elisa. I'm a student in the UK. And
I think the mic is a bit soft. Can you guys hear?
Eliza, can you speak up a little bit?
Yeah, it's my
Eliza, could you type your question? We're getting some audio issues.
Okay.
Yeah, no worries. Okay. So real quick, we have a question from Austin George.
Hi, Elon. I'm Austin, so I'm 18. I organize a hack club in Long Island, New York, and I also direct a hackathon called Teen Hacks Alive. And so I guess my question is really across Tesla, SpaceX, and your other initiatives, you led like pretty huge teams. And I'm sure there've been like people in those teams who think your ideas are like crazy and like impossible. So my question is, what's the most important thing you've learned in terms of communicating your ideas and sharing your vision with the team?
Sure. Well, I generally believe in using the tools of physics. I think they're very effective, and the mental constructs are very effective. And one of them is that you should always take the approach that you're wrong, and your goal is to be less wrong. It's important. So I emphasize this to the teams very frequently. And in fact, if a wrong idea is coming from me, which obviously that will happen sometimes, for sure. And sometimes people will give me too much credit, and I think, well, he did this one thing that we thought was impossible, so therefore, even this other thing that he sounds that is actually crazy, well, maybe it's true. It's like, no, that's just wrong. Yeah, it's like, so, like, definitely, just taking the approach of we're all wrong, and we wish to be less wrong is very important. And if we can just be a little less wrong each day, that would be a victory. Just mostly being less wrong every day would be an incredible victory. And as this all the time, with the technical teams, and it's very important that everyone take that approach. And it makes sense, because like the counterpoint would be that you have the Platonic ideal of the perfect idea, which is impossible, really. So there's some error between this platonically perfect idea or approach and what you're actually doing, and that gap is much bigger than you think it is. So just think of it like, okay, we want to minimize the error between what you're doing and what is platonically perfect. That's like a very important concept. And then a number of things that like people tend to self-limit and think that they shouldn't question someone who's an expert. Yeah, but this is definitely not the case. You should absolutely question experts in another arena. It shouldn't mean that you should not say that you arbitrarily assume that you have a better opinion than an expert in an arena. But the thing that should drive the outcome is the fundamental reasoning, not who said it. So it should be best idea of reasoning wins, not the prominence or stature of the person who said it. It's very important to question authority of all kinds. It just, yes, this is very, everyone is wrong some of the time. And so, yeah, probably the most important thing.
That was a really interesting question and also a really fascinating answer. So Elon, real quick, thank you so much. I'm really sorry, everybody. That's all the time we have. But I'm going to hand it over to Zach to close this out for today. But Elon, thank you so much on behalf of Hack Club. Zach?
Well, Elon, thank you so much for being here with us. And for everyone on this call and everyone watching, really thank you for tuning in. It's an honor to have your time. So some quick wrap-up items. For anyone who's watching who'd like to join Hack Club, applications are open. It's actually an open community. Just go to hackclub.com. We would love to have you be part of it. A couple quick wrap-up items. So for everybody on this call, please hang around. We'll be passing it over to Melody. Melody's going to be announcing some upcoming events, some stuff about the community, and a little bit more about Hack Club. Elon, thank you again so much for your time. We are just unbelievably humbled and grateful. And I just think I speak for all of us when I say this is a really special hour that you gave us.
You're most welcome. Those are really great questions. I was really impressed with the questions. I'm not one for false praise. So just like, you're just a very impressive group. And this makes me feel like actually I'm much more optimistic about the future having this conversation with you guys. So it's like you guys seem great. Yeah. Right. Yeah. Getting things done. Shipping code. All right. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Elon.
Thank you so much.
Bye.
Thank you
Joining
so
us.
much.
Thank you so much.
Right.
Elon, thank you.
Amazing.
Thank you so much, Elon.
Elon. Thank you.
Love you, Elon.
Yeah.
Elon.
Thanks, Elon.
God.
Wait, I'm
Hi,
live.
everybody.
This is
Melody.
Thank you so much.
All right.
Can everybody mute the mics again, please? We're handing it over to Melody. And I hear your mechanical keyboard. Please stay muted. Melody,
Yeah, it's my keyboard. Sorry.
My bad.
Everyone, thank you so much for joining us for this call today. Let's see here. So I'm gonna talk. So feel free to please stick around for. We're gonna be doing a student showcase after this call. But first, I wanted to. Yeah, cool. I wanted you all to please check out our website at hackclub.com. If you're a high school student, we have a wonderful community waiting for you. And follow us on Twitter at hackclub. We also, next up, we also have a couple of upcoming AMAs. So next Thursday and next week, we're gonna have Jack Conte, the CEO of Patreon. On May 7th, we're going to have Simone Gertz. She's the queen of shitty robots and invented the Trekla. And on May 14th, we're going to have Guillermo Roch. He founded Verso, formerly Zeit, and created some of the most popular JavaScript frameworks back in the day. So on top of that, Hack Club is a 501c3 nonprofit. This call wouldn't be possible without all of our wonderful student volunteers. If you we would love it if you could support us. We rely on people like you to bring coding to the world. So if you would like to contribute today to help the next generation of high school coders, head to hackclub.com/donate. All right. So we're gonna bring it over to Claire, who will help run a discussion. And to capture our first impressions from the community. And after that, we are going to showcase some of the wonderful
Amazing. So I was hoping we could talk about maybe so I know a lot of questions weren't able to be answered, but it would be interesting to maybe talk about what you felt you learned, or if you've changed anything, any preconceptions or ideas you had before the call. Just is advice or something that actually, told you what high school to go to or something. So you guys could feel free to come on mic if that's not too.
Wow, that was really cool. I found it really interesting when he was talking about capitalism and since we actually we were talking about this a bit in pre-calls about what he might think about capitalism versus socialism, and it was very interesting to hear him describe government as one monopoly. I found that his views on that were very, very interesting.
Definitely. For those of you who do debate, he was reading all the he was reading CapK.
Literally a CapK.
Literally a CapK. I'm just oh my gosh.
All the links, and I'm just yeet.
He's climate change and so yeah, that was pretty inspiring. Anyone else?
I was pretty surprised that his demeanor was so loose. I mean, usually on other interviews he's a bit more tense, but I guess since he's around a maker community space with a bunch of teenagers, he can be a bit less tense than he normally is.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's something that I noticed too. I don't know what I thought that a billionaire would sound like, but this guy's aggressively normal, and I don't know.
Aggressively normal.
Yeah.
Aggressively normal.
He's just like us. He's
he's pretty grounded, for a billionaire.
So down to earth.
Yeah, he's so down to earth.
Well,
probably what sets him apart from other people. It's because he can be so normal around other people. It's just makes him a better person towards the community.
And that's probably what makes him such a good leader too, right?
Yeah, I mean he doesn't there's no what's that called again? Advertising. He's against advertising, and there's not a lot of PR, but then he's this good at PR. So
Yeah.
it's
And
definitely-
then when he's like,
Oh, go ahead.
when he's like talking about like area under the curve of a happiness graph and just like trying to maximize that in all his projects, like I thought that was really cool.
Yeah.
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 What do you guys? So Zach's like super long 3 years question. You guys have any creative answers to that?
The chat really did not like it.
Yeah, I just came after Zach. I was like really shocked. It was so...
I don't know how Elon like was following along with the question. I forgot half of it.
What was the question?
The question was like the one about like having 3 parallel Earths and then like he had to lead one to victory.
Oh yeah.
What do you mean that you people didn't like it?
I think like a lot of people said in the chat, but I was surprised how articulate he was with the question. Like I think that was like pretty amazing, especially for all the other questions. Like every single one was well thought out, even though they were pretty much on the spot.
Yeah, I think it was also really interesting, like kind of how different Zach's answer and Elon's answer were, as far as what Elon said was so much more abstract than what I would initially think of. Like I would think of something closer along the lines of what Zach said, as far as really concrete things like build roads, but like propagate the scientific method, I would never have thought of that. But when you think about that, I feel like that makes a lot more sense, because if you think of the really concrete stuff that you can do now, if you choose to do that, it's really temporary. But then like something like bring on the Enlightenment or the scientific method, that's going to extend and that's going to like have such an effect far later on. So I thought, yeah, that's interesting, because like understanding the theoretical side of computer science and stuff like that, I feel like I've previously kind of brushed that off, as far as all the abstract stuff like having your head in the clouds isn't as important as knowing how to code with the current tools right now. But like I feel something like that shows how important that is, having the more abstract mindset in some cases.
Yeah, I think that just comes from his more science side of things. Like he's very much into physics and everything. So I kind of expected his answer would have something to do with the scientific method. But that was really cool to hear. It's very much like his personality.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
I really liked the way he approached trying to tell other people his ideas, because it was very logical. He said that he explained the logic first, and if you do it with the laws of physics, then everyone would understand you. And I feel like that's like very much.
And I thought to add on, his answers were really genuine and well thought out for like a short AMA, because in AMAs you usually think it's scripted, but I thought he had really good answers that were really thought out.
I think that went a bit longer than was originally planned. So that's great.
Oh,
Give it like an hour.
Give some context to Claire's statement. He was scheduled for 30 minutes. His team told us 30 minutes and no more, and then he went for an hour.
Oh yeah,
which is like
that is so
awesome.
amazing.
What a legend.
His team texted our group chat, and they're like, wrap up in 2 questions. So then I was like, okay, we have 2 more. Then Elon was like, no, let's go longer. I like this. Okay.
Yeah, that was so incredible. Thank you all so much for like coming.
Yeah, thank you, Theo, for putting this together.
Thank you for organizing.
Thank you so much,
Fun. It was so much fun.
Yeah.
This was amazing.
I'm sorry for those of you who couldn't get all their questions in.
When he
I wanted to know whether he liked chocolate or strawberry milk more.
Same.
The most important question of all.
Right? We're asking the important
Tabs are better than spaces. Tabs are better than spaces.
Yeah.
Yeah. Tabs are better than spaces. That's the best thing.
Because if he said strawberry,
tabs are better than spaces.
because if he said strawberry, if he said strawberry, I'm starting a.
Zach said
He said tabs.
He said
tabs.
Oh, tabs.
Elon said tabs. Zach said spaces.
Unfortunately, he said tabs.
Tabs is the only right. No, tabs is the only right. I just had this discussion with my boss.
Yeah.
Tabs is the only
Unfortunately,
right.
he also said he uses both, which is like the worst answer.
Right.
Both answers are way wrong. You're supposed to use carriage returns. Neither of those.
No.
When you try to find the solution to a problem, you try to find.
I just want to let everyone know that I actually write all of my code vertically.
At a time, right? Where you just like go down.
Some ancient characters.
I write my code using French cards.
Minify.
Oh, you went about like reaching out to
Minify your code as you're writing.
Write it all in one line.
Neo, you naturally obfuscate your code.
To using punch cards. All code should be written on punch cards.
Punch cards.
The real thing is index cards or cardboard.
I wrote a game. If you want, you can pay me $20 so I can recreate all the punch cards and then mail them to you. Within 3 to 5 business days.
He has a superior offer.
Thanks, Teggy.
FedEx has the highest bandwidth in the world.
I'm still a fan of IP
without
over
the coronavirus, I'd say.
You guys want to know something like ridiculously interesting about FedEx? So I heard this a while ago, but they keep a bunch of empty planes in the air just so that if they have to get a bunch of packages from one place to another really quickly, they can just land the plane at the point in the US where they need to pick everything up and then go.
What the?
It sounds
cool. For them to do that,
where they have like the biggest fleet.
Production lines.
It's cheaper for them to keep the planes in the air than put them leave them on the ground. Is what I read.
Interesting.
What if Hack Nights felt like this conversation right now? Like I feel like that would be like such a boon to the
think it would be
community.
super interesting.
We
to
should
have-
live stream. We should live stream.
That's
a bad idea.
Yeah.
What do you mean? Our hack nights are great.
Please
You
don't
can
live
fully
stream.
live stream them.
Live stream hack nights.
Yes, every part of Hack Night is very legal and